Maybe.
We've only been to the London Film Festival one, but we'd happily go to.
We'd love to go.
If we're paid for and put up, we'll go anywhere.
Yeah, we'll go anywhere.
Venice.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So you know that cabinet in my kitchen got fixed. It's been broken
how we're
for like
starting the
4 or
show?
5 months. Yeah.
Strap in, folks.
And then my wardrobe door that's been falling off for the same amount of time, about 6 months. So I like part of a generation that just I don't know how to do it, can't fix it, never got taught at school, can't do the hinge. So I tried to get could you fix a hinge on a door? Which you need to drill in and do
Not
a
a
door?
swing door, but I can fix a cabinet. I can unless it's been pulled out and it's lost some of the filling out of it. Then
It's lost the filling. It used to be like
which you need money to drill, but
So like I tried to get a handyman in ages ago, and it was like very classic. Guy comes over, and I'm like, I've told him already what we need to do, and he's like, no, can't do it. You need to go to the shop, get the hinge. It's called the PLX941 copper brass thing, but and I'm like,
you have to do that.
in my head, I'm like, I don't want to go. Like I'm here to hire a man to do it because I can't/won't do it. I'm not proud of it, but this is why I'm here.
You've outsourced your ability.
Outsourced. Here's some money. Please do it. I don't say this aloud. This is in my head. Please. And then so like months go by.
You're really great.
Totally. Months go by. You're like, James, you still need to get this cabinet fixed. I'm like, yes, I know. Get this new guy to come in today. George, he was phenomenal. He comes in, meant to come at 9:30, turns up 9:32. Fine.
That's brilliant.
Comes straight in. He goes, show me the cabinet. I was like, oh my God, straight to it. Show him the wardrobe door. He goes, yes, I can fix this. Show me the other one. I show him the cabinet. He goes, yes, this will be fine. I go to my car, get the things, and I come back. And I'm like, okay, do you need tea or coffee? He's like, no, I'm going to be very quick. I'll be very quick for you. So he comes back in and he's like, straight away, drill, does it. And then I'm like, I'm going to need to go. It's my mum's birthday today, so I went to go get her some flowers. I'm like, I'm just going to pop to the shop.
To your mum.
To my mum. I popped to the shop and I'm like, I'm just going to pop out, but I'll be back in about 5-10 minutes. And he says, you can do, but I'll be done and I'll be gone. And George, I came back. He was done. He was gone.
Wow.
Like a ghost. Like he was never here. My cabinet fixed. The other guy, bunch of bullshit. Go to the shop, buy the thing.
You got ripped off.
What do you mean?
By the first guy.
Well, I never paid. We never.
Sure,
you
got.
He never did
tight.
it. So
I'm
he's
gonna,
like, yeah,
I'm
you
gonna,
can call back.
I'm gonna go in that kitchen and rip it off, just to see the look on your face.
6 months later, he was great. No nonsense.
Have you ever seen Mouse Hunt with Lee Evans and what's his name? The guy's good and everything. Nathan Lane. You've seen that movie?
No.
I used to watch it a lot when I was a kid. Really strange, funny movie.
When Lee Evans did a bit of acting.
Funny when you were a kid. Like it's basically these two almost like con artist brothers inherit this mansion, this creaky old. It's not haunted. It's like a play on that. It's a creaky old mansion out in the sticks, but instead of being haunted, the thing of the film is that it's got a mouse problem. It's got one mouse, and this mouse is a huge issue. And obviously, you have lots of comedic scenes with Lee Evans doing his fantastic physical shtick and Nathan Lane being great. But there's a scene where Christopher Walken turns up as a rat hunter.
Right.
And he comes up almost looking like a Ghostbuster with all these like equipment and gear and like goggles on his head. And he's like, to hunt a rat, you have to think like a rat. You have to get down on your knees, smell around. And, Lee Evans and Nathan Lane are like, okay. Yeah. Just reminded me of that. Very funny.
Did you ever see The Borrowers?
With John Goodman.
And John Goodman is also like, he comes in to like,
ages
it's a real sort of perspective scale, fun, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids type thing. And he like fills in all the insulation with this like foam. It was good.
John Goodman's always a welcome presence in any film, I think.
Yeah.
Whenever I see him,
and he makes an impact when he comes in. He's big, he doesn't go mixed.
He's a big guy.
Yeah.
We're not going to lie about it. I mean, he's imposing.
He's all talks, like very presidential.
Sully.
Yeah.
So interesting thing happened this week. So James and I, in one day, we had like 2 events that we had to do, which was quite fun. So in the morning, we went to the Savoy Hotel to go and listen to the announcement of the BAFTA, this year's BAFTA Awards. Every year, there's a category for the Best Rising Star.
Yep. 5
nominees. They do a little press thingy in the morning where they bring the nominees out, a couple of the nominees, they chat for a bit, photo call, that stuff, and we're just there in the crowd. And it was
get to look at famous people.
Yeah, to look at famous people, and it was all nice, and that's all great.
Ali Plum does like a mini live junket.
Yeah, and you can vote for those people now if you want, whoever wants. It's the only BAFTA award voted for, but by the public, and you can go and do that. But the reason I bring it up, because I went last year and you were unavailable.
Yeah.
I remember last year I went, and they lay out this really nice breakfast spread. It's the Savoy Hotel we're talking about here. And I remember thinking this year, I was like, ooh, last year I had a banging cup of tea.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this.
Oh, no,
So this year, I get there before James. We go down, lovely breakfast spread. I'm like, here I go, a cup of tea. Go over to the tea table. However, what they had this year, which they didn't have last year, was a member of staff with white cotton gloves and a white cotton jacket.
So Savoy.
Being like, hello, sir, tea or coffee? And I'm thinking, I mean, this is not like running off to the kitchen to get some sort of elaborate thing. It's a tea urn, you know, and out of a bag, ripped out of a paper thing. And I'm thinking, I probably could do this myself. I feel a little bit demeaning asking someone to do this, but it is her job. And like, not like it is her job, she should do it. But like, I want to respect the fact that, you know, she's there.
You'd be creating more problems if you tried to make your own tea.
So I deferred to her. I said, of course, I would love a cup of tea. Thank you. And James, here's what I saw. She took the mug. She took the tea.
British members of the audience, please listen with caution.
She took the tea bag out of the paper bit, slapped it in the mug. That's fine. Put the hot water onto the tea bag, filled it up to the cup. Fine. Said to me, would you like milk? I said, yes, please. She said, okay. Took the tea bag out of the mug, slapped it down, poured the milk in, and handed it to me. And
Unbelievable.
James, I think I've stepped in puddles I would have drunk from more than this tea. It was...
And from the Savoy.
I mean, really. And I looked at it, and I looked at her, and I thought, do I be that person? Do I do that?
My dad is that person.
But I went, thank you. And I walked over to my table, I took a couple of sips, and I waited for James to arrive to basically sneak back over to the table and make a stronger cup. So not great tea experience.
It astounds me that I film in a lot of hotels and I travel quite a lot and I have to have a lot of like rushed breakfasts. It astounds me that a hotel... Again, I might sound like so sort of entitled a personal problem.
I can't fix the cabinets on my door in my kitchen, and when I go to the hotel...
That a hotel whose product is bed, sleep, and welcoming you in the morning and off in your day, that coffee and obviously tea, morning beverages, aren't like the most paramount pillar of that entire business. Because some hotels have like very average breakfasts, but if that average breakfast has a proper coffee, for me it's coffee, made by a person, or there's like an actual, like someone took a trendy cafe and they said, I want that in my hotel, and they lifted it up and put it in the hotel breakfast, and it gets brought to you, or I can go and order it. And like, well, if you get that, average breakfast doesn't matter. But if you have an average breakfast and the coffee is, yes, sir, there's a sachet under your cup. Or the coffee is, yes, sir, there's a machine, just press latte. All of a sudden, and some of these are nice hotels, fancy hotels. I just think like ordering a la carte ordered coffee should be the pillar of hospitality in hotels. And the fact that it isn't is mind-blowing. That is all.
Hearing us talk, I'm wondering if people spit in our coffee.
Because I genuinely like I know we're totally different. For me, tea is like, tea's nice. I like a nice tea. Aren't we having tea in a nice place? But coffee for me is like a good coffee I will dream about. I will go to bed like, oh my God, this coffee's like made my day. And then if you think you're going to get it and like your entire framing for the day is just fucked if you have the bad coffee. And I would like need to now get a coffee. And I just think even expensive hotels get this wrong. Anyway, I'm just sort of waffling.
Well,
I'm very upset.
I agree because tea is the here's the sort of peril that lies in tea. It's its simplicity, and its simplicity.
There you go.
Walk the path straightly, and you will be fine.
Yeah.
Deviate or not adhere to the simple rules of tea making, and you risk jeopardizing
the foundations.
Someone's day. That said, everything else at the breakfast was lovely. And of course, if the Savoy Hotel would like to have us back anytime, we happily take it.
Hey, we love.
Do you know what? I think really, if I'm properly to get a good review of the Savoy, I'll need to stay, gratis to get a good experience.
I'll never forget.
That can be sorted out. Thank you.
Before my first ever shift as a runner, and the foundation of that job is making tea. And I wasn't a big tea drinker. Like I would drink tea, but again, like, not a big thing. I said to my mum, I was like, Mum, I don't want you to feel weird about me asking you this. Could we just go through like how to make a really good cup of tea? Because I don't want to cock it up. And then she did. She was like, here are the things, and just little tips that you don't even think about.
Me too.
And I really took that into my career, and I think it's a testament to where I am today that I asked.
It's not rocket
those
science.
questions.
It's little bits of etiquette. Anyway, welcome to episode 111. 111.
Palindrome.
Yes, it is correct.
Yeah.
So would have been episode 101.
Yeah. And so will episode 323.
Which, oh my God, James, that's in the future.
Yeah. Mark this day.
So it could be episode 222.
232. 171.
Okay. Stop now. My brain hurts. Actually, any number any 121, 131, 141 of this entire range.
We'll have loads in this century.
This is an interesting. The fact that it's episode 111 is interesting because today we've got reviews of 2 films. We're going to be reviewing The Holdovers, which I know a lot of people have already written in about because it came out in the States prior to Christmas. A lot of awards buzz. Paul Giamatti picking up a couple of award gongs there. That's coming out.
Strange that happens. Usually America doesn't get stuff that much earlier than us. It used to be a thing that happened like 15 years ago.
And it is a shame that this film, which is heavily centered around Christmas, comes out in January, which is often like the worst time to bring out.
Natalia watching it, we're like, why? She was like, why didn't it come out at Christmas? I was like, it came out at Christmas in the United States.
I can only assume that maybe to do with the strike or whatever, it was too soon to get things booked in. I don't know. But we're going to be reviewing The Holdovers, and I have also seen the new Anthony Hopkins film, One Life, about Nicholas Winton, true story. We'll be reviewing that. And, as ever, guys, you're in for a treat. A bonus episode coming your way. We're going to be talking about
Poor Things. I finally went to go see Poor Things. Going to be picking up on George's thoughts, and I'll be giving my thoughts. It'll probably be some spoiler discussion in there as well. So if you haven't seen Poor Things, please wait for that. But yeah.
And also a quick review you'll be doing of a new horror film called
Night Swim. About an evil swimming pool.
Do they use the REM song Night Swimming? Because that's what I don't know if you know that song, but every time I see it, I go, Night Swimming.
I'm going to say no.
Any REM fans out there? All right, let's get on with the show. So guys, coming up this Friday is National Popcorn Day, so it makes total sense to pay a visit to your local cinema to mark the occasion. If you pop into your local View on Friday, that's Friday the 19th of January, you'll be able to take your popcorn to the next level by topping it up with a portion of M&Ms for free.
You can give different flavour combos a go by pairing the chocolate M&Ms with sweet, salty or mixed popcorn. If you're wondering what to see while you're out enjoying your jazzed up popcorn, then don't worry, because View are doing their bit towards banishing the January blues by bringing some real feel-good classics back to the big screen.
Yes, Mrs. Doubtfire will be showing at View venues across the country, and The Devil Wears Prada will also be returning to the big screen from Friday. In the next couple of weeks, you'll also be able to see films like Groundhog Day, Sister Act, Mamma Mia, and 10 Things I Hate About You, which will be guaranteed to put a smile on your face and help you navigate the winter months. Also, they'll be playing alongside new releases like Poor Things, The Holdovers, and Mean Girls.
For more information and to book tickets at your local View, head over to myview.com. Back to the show.
So let's do One Life, which I know came out a few weeks ago, but it was sort of heavily trailed at the London Film Festival last year. One Life is the new film with Anthony Hopkins, Johnny Flynn, and also Helena Bonham Carter and Jonathan Pryce. Do you know the story of Sir Nicholas Winton?
No, I don't.
Which is interesting because I do, partly just through news and being sort of fairly interested in like World War II. So I think the film can exist with you knowing the story. I'll try and tiptoe around it as much as possible. I think if you don't know the story, then that's even better.
Let's assume audience members also don't
I will.
know it as well.
I will assume absolutely that audience members, particularly outside of the UK, will not know this story. But I think there are elements of this story that will be known to people, particularly on TikTok or whatever. So, One Life is about Sir Nicholas Winton, who in 1938. He was a London stockbroker. In 1938, he went to Czechoslovakia after the Nazis invaded the Sudetenland, and he helped organize what was called the Kindertransport, taking child refugees and getting them safe passage via train to the UK, where they would be looked after by parents, adults and guardians. And he did that. He had he wasn't like he was Czech or Slovakian himself. He had no personal connection to it. He did this because he has felt like a moral duty to. So the story follows his experience in 1938 of doing that and cuts to the present day, which is in 1988, I believe, where Anthony Hopkins plays Sir Nicholas Winton later in life, who is retired, still doing lots of charitable work, incensed at the way that refugees are talked about on the news, and has a very cluttered house in a drawer in his desk in which a briefcase sits sort of untouched. And there's a lot of talk from his wife saying, "You need to clear up the house. We need to move on. You know, our child is pregnant, going to have a grandson soon. Can you clear up the house?" So she goes away, and sure enough, he does. And he's thinking, "What do I do with this briefcase?" And in this briefcase is all about the children that he helped navigate safe passage for, and all the children he helped saved back in the early 1930s. you kind of then have this. You have these two stories, like I said, cutting back to seeing his experience and cutting forward to the present day to seeing how that experience in the past is reconciled with Nicholas Winton's life. He's an incredibly humble man. He doesn't want to fuss about what happened in the past. He doesn't want to hide it, but he is not interested in. He doesn't all of a sort of associate any sort of heroism with what he did. That's the central story, and the film builds towards a conclusion. Like I said, I think a lot of people will know, but if you don't, that's absolutely fine. So, part historical story based on fact. Here's the thing with One Life is that when you look at the poster and when you watch the film, it is kind of exactly what it looks like in that it is very straightforward, very simple, very, you could say, pedestrian in its approach. It's like, this sounds kind of condescending. I don't mean it to be, but it's made by BBC Films. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of got that feel. It's
Right,
like,
yeah.
here's a true story with
British story.
A-list talent in it. That's about a really important subject that can reflect something on the present day. And, you know, in that sense, there's nothing definably special about the film, which is fine. I'm just mentioning that because we're at a time of year where you have things like Poor Things and The Holdovers, these very loud standout
I feel
awards
like One
contenders.
Life was leaning into that conversation.
Yeah, it was. And it would have been an awards contender maybe 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's a very kind of safe, straightforward, simple kind of pedestrian film. However, the fact is, the story is a good story. And through telling a really good story, which has a relevant and emotional punch to it, that can carry it through. And Anthony Hopkins doing great work as ever. I mean, he really can do it in his sleep. And all the other talent, of course, on screen. But with him and with this story, I found that by the end of the film, I was kind of like, yeah, this is a valuable story. It's something that we should remember. I think that if I had anything, there was the early part of his story about his motivation as a young man to go to Czechoslovakia to do this. The first time we cut back to 1938, he's basically come home to Helena Bonham Carter, who's playing his mother, being like, right, I'm going. Have you heard the news? I'm trying to make contact. I'm going. And I personally would have liked a little bit more about what takes an ordinary person, what motivates an ordinary man like himself, who had no connection to Czechoslovakia, to want to go out there and perform this moral duty. What was the penny drop moment? Other than, obviously, it was a humanitarian disaster.
Yeah.
We know that. We know the sort of gathering storm that was happening. But I personally would have liked a little bit more about what makes an ordinary person decide to do something with great risk that performs extraordinary action. But I think the film it's heartfelt and it's a really good story. And I think, you and I are interested in World War II and kind of have I think connected to World War II. And I think it will resonate. And I have to say that towards the end of the film, it did prick my conscience, and I did start to think: do I do enough? Do I do enough? Do we do enough as people? Not. Here's someone who was an ordinary man and did something extraordinary, and the film actually gets more interesting as it moves on because of what happened, the way it plays on Nicholas Winton's life, and the way that Anthony Hopkins kind of performs that weight carrying on him is very moving and involving. So a lot of people might have missed it, or they might have seen a poster for it and thought, I'll catch it whenever. It is simple, it is straightforward, but it is a very good story, and it is very well told and with great performances. So that carries it over the line.
Is it worth me seeing?
I think if you've got a spare bit of time, I would say, if you've got like a damp Tuesday afternoon and you don't know what to do with yourself, you're like, well, One Life. And I think actually, particularly because you don't know the story, actually, it's probably more valuable for you. Because for me, I knew the main bits. Yeah. There was a couple of moments where I thought, I didn't know that person was involved. That significant historical figure was involved. I didn't realize this. But I think for you, it could be worthwhile.
Nice. So guys, if you enjoyed One Life and you'd like to send in your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, your opinions about the film, send them into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com and we will read them out on the show. George, thank you very much.
So let's do The Holdovers, which we've both seen. And like I said at the top of the show, getting a lot of messages about it from a more international audience saying they've seen it. And like I said, a lot of buzz around it. We talked about it briefly when we talked about the films that were coming to the London Film Festival last year. And it's directed by Alexander Payne, who's a director that I really like. He's got a really good, witty slightly satirical edge to him. And if anyone's seen Election with Reese Witherspoon and Matthew Broderick, I really like that. He made Sideways. Sideways is probably his most successful film. That's with Paul Giamatti in the sort of wine country. It's pretty good. He made Nebraska, The Descendants. And then he kind of shot himself in the foot, shall I say. I never saw it, but he made Downsizing.
I think I saw it and stopped.
Which I've heard was really, really bad.
It really unravels and gets sort of uninteresting to me.
That was 7 years ago, though. So he's had time to sort of go away. And this is actually, he just directs this film. He hasn't written it, which he normally writes his own scripts. The Holdovers is set in 1970 in New England. I want to say Massachusetts somewhere. It is Massachusetts.
New England, Massachusetts.
New England, yeah. And it's set at an elite boarding school for boys in New England,
which is always a really weird destination character in American cinema for me. Because for me, like those style boarding schools feel like such an English thing, and then to see that jettisoned into American culture, which from our perspective, American culture is high school, like Mean Girls. I'm always like, where does this fit? And who goes to these things? And what are the people like that graduate from them? I've always found them like weird and fascinating in equal measure. But that's all.
So you're at this school called Barton Academy. It is December 1970. It is snowbound. It is freezing. All the kids are ready to pack up and go home for the holidays. There's sort of a tangible excitement in the air. On the one hand, you have Angus, who is, slightly, gangly, tall, but very precocious and very smart student who can't wait to go to St. Kitts. He's got a suitcase packed. He's thinking, I'm getting out of here. On the other hand, you have the person who's his classics teacher, played by Paul Giamatti, who plays Paul Hunnam, who is this classics professor, who is a sort of classic trope of curmudgeonly figure, who is every single sentence is a classics reference to the Greeks, to the Romans.
Never leaves the school.
Never leaves the school. He's there in his bow tie and his sleeveless cardigan, like I'm wearing right now.
Crusty tweed suit.
Smoking a pipe. And curmudgeonly, difficult person who doesn't really want to socialize with other people. One of the first scenes of the film. One of the first scenes of the film is him being given a plate of Christmas cookies by a fellow colleague and him not really knowing what to do with it. Yeah. However, what happens is every year, one member of staff has to stay on campus and monitor those that are called the holdovers. Those are the boys that have nowhere to go over Christmas time and have to stay on site. For various reasons, it turns out to be Paul's year, news to which he accepts, not with complete outrage. He already stays on campus and lives on campus anyway, so he's not completely outraged. Yeah. He's a little bit annoyed at not being able to have his private time. But he is given this ragtag bunch of about 5 boys, including Angus, who thought he was going to St. Kitts, but through plot circumstances finds himself being one of the holdovers. So there you are. You have a curmudgeonly professor looking after a ragtag bunch of boys of different ages on campus during the Christmas of 1970. They are also joined by Mary, who is the school cook, who is grieving the loss of her son, who was a Barton student, who was killed in Vietnam that year. Crucially, Mary is black, her son was black, and there is this racial theme running through it about how her son was only able to get access to that school because of her working there, but her son was not wealthy enough to afford college, which the elite kids are able to go to, which would mean they could dodge or / defer being drafted to the Vietnam War. There you have this kind of ragtag pseudo-family situation. It's shot on sort of shimmering film stock with the sort of nice bit of noise and grain in the camera. The holdovers. James.
Can I just say, zoom shots are so in right now. Yeah. From Poor Things, which is pretty eccentric enough as it is, expect there to be a few. May, December, Dream Scenario, I want to say loads of others. This film in particular, zoom shots, so hot right now.
Also, zoom shots, they're great comedic devices, mainly,
great
aren't
comedic,
they?
Great as tension builders.
Melodrama.
Great to like lean you into looking in forward or zooming out. There's some like amazing zooms from like what must have been an 800mm, which is like a tight on Paul Giamatti, and it just whips. Yeah. It's like a super wide, very, very fun. I think, talk about set in the 1970s. It's not only looks like the 1970s, it looks like a film made in the 1970s. And I think it's a film that we would more likely have got closer to the 1970s. We don't really get lots of films like The Holdovers. I thought Dead Poets Society immediately screamed out to me as a pairing for this, like teachers, students, old American boarding school. I loved that it started with those vintage film indents, the old school, I don't know what you'd call them, but sort of labeling and classification of film really wants you to think that you're watching an older film from an older time. And immediately I was so wonderfully sold by its amazing sense of period and place. And I it was, despite it being very frosty and actually a different kind of Christmas film, I felt like a lot of it was a very much a warm blanket for me. I think overall I had a really, really nice, sweet time with it. I think it's a very sensitive and delicate film. It has this running sense of melancholy all the way throughout, but it wasn't overpowering. There's a sadness under a lot of the scene sirens on our end that I think, you know, it's there, but it doesn't overpower the film. A lot of it's emotional. I think it's actually quite reserved with how much I was expecting more emotional gut punches than it actually delivered. I wonder if I do want more. But none of the moments towards the end where I think it really sort of turns up the drama, they didn't feel cheap. I felt like it really earned those moments and I was really there with the characters. So for that, I think it's really great. I think Paul Giamatti, can we say a Pulp Kitchen favourite of ours? But we've not actually discussed Paul Giamatti in a long time, because I don't think he's been in something that you and I discussed. But I just think he's kind of cast in the perfect Paul Giamatti role as a know-it-all professor who's very sort of soft and empathetic, but has a sort of hidden sadness within him. And then this kid who I entirely looked at him and I was like, that guy's like 28.
But he's not, he's 21.
He's 21. I take it all back. I really was struggling because he's quite tall and it looks like he was sort of clean shaving every day. But forgive me, the actor's name he plays...
I want to say Dominic Sassa.
Dominic Sassa. Really, really, really great. Funny when he needs to be. Kind of played Jewish, but isn't Jewish in the film. But we were sort of thinking there's a Jewish style comedy to him in that. Yeah, and I had a really nice time with it.
Dominic Sessa.
Thank you, Dominic Sessa.
I
nice.
basically I'm of the same opinion. I really liked it. I thought it was really lovely, and the longer the film went on, the more I kind of was enjoying its company and its presence. I agree. I think Paul Giamatti is doing a wonderful. All the performers are actually doing a wonderful thing, and I think the first thing I noticed is that the film is really built on tropes that in other hands would be very kind of mishandled and very kind of reductive. So, for example, the reluctant guardian trope. Oh, I now have this boy and boys in my care. I don't want to be that. See Manchester by the Sea, see About a Boy.
The Last of Us.
Exactly, right? It's been done. And also the kind of Scrooge curmudgeon trope. All those ingredients are there. There's lots of kind of... It's kind of got a literary aspect to it, not just because he's a classics professor, but some of the kind of... Actually, the characterization is so, I think, multi-dimensional and well-written that it feels like a novel approach. Despite it being kind of, the setting of it, boarding school, kids together, ragtag bunch of kids. It's Christmas. They're all different, but are they? But when they actually find common ground in lesser hands, that would have been a very schmaltzy, I think, eye-rolling, predictable film. But because Alexander Payne is a very good filmmaker, and this is working from a great script, and it's made with great intelligence, it completely lifts that. And what you have is a film that's smart, that's witty, is full of soul, does not tip over into schmaltziness, does not actually pull a Dead Poets Society on us, but actually has...
Dead Poets is like the most dramatic...
You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
it holds itself back from that. And it really lets you kind of... lets its characters breathe. And the way those characters are written, I was really... The way they would feed information and reveal things about those characters throughout the story was really well timed and really well placed. And then what makes it great is every so often there'll be a nice witty gag. Everything from a slapstick gag to a very sharp line to great staging and also like visual comedy as well. I mean, you talked about the zoom shots. Alexander Payne has a good visually comic eye as well. And I really found myself caring a lot and the emotional dynamic. And it's set within this world, which is really interesting, is full of contrasts, right? So you have elite private boarding school that is also on its last legs, has not got a lot of money. They're trying to conserve heat. The way that the Holdovers, the boys, kind of exist in the week before Christmas is like prison.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
austere.
They have to all leave their dubes, move into the infirmary.
Yeah, that's it. They're only putting the heating on in like one section of the building, so they all have to move there. You have a professor who is erudite and brilliant and intelligent, but really struggles to communicate with other people.
Yeah.
You've got, like I said, Mary, this figure who's warm and intelligent and emotionally intelligent, but is kind of relegated to being backroom staff because she's in the kitchen. And there's all of the, and like I said, this kind of, even the 1970s setting is a contrast because it's shot with nostalgia, warm film stock, beautiful buildings, architecture, the crispness of the snow, the way that the Christmas lights kind of shimmer in the film stock.
In the town as well.
But also cut with the fact that this is a very kind of bleak time for America. The presence of Vietnam is just there.
The threat of it is there.
Yeah, the threat of it, particularly on that generation of boys. And there's a line where I think Angus says, they'll send me to, he's worried about being kicked out of school, and he says, they'll send me to military academy or where, and they all know that there's Vietnam. So I think that's great, and it gives it a really nice sense of balance. I just came away thinking that was a really well balanced, very clearly thought out and proportioned film. And it was kind of, there is something old fashioned in a way, but not old fashioned in it's stuffy. You can relax into it and think, oh yeah, this is an even handed, nicely good movie with good heart, that doesn't tip over, doesn't do anything silly, doesn't push your buttons too much. It has enough intelligence to let you build it yourself. And I thought it was lovely.
To me, the handling of Mary's character in particular was something that I think really separates it from other films of the era it's evoking. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, films from that era were writing middle-aged black women in that way. I think in a lesser hands or in a lesser film or a film that wasn't written as well, that character would be reduced to like a wisecracking or like giving the white character some random wisdom throughout the film. And there's just this, they give that character and what that character's going through so much lovely room to breathe without screaming it in your face.
Yeah.
And it's allowed to inform everything else for the other characters without dominating the film and just being well-rounded and sincere and emotionally relevant. That for me was, I thought, that whole character arc really stood out to me.
And played by Davine Joy Randolph. Davine Joy Randolph, I want to say.
Davine Joy Randolph,
who I have only seen previously in Only Murders in the Building, where she was working from a much lesser script. And then I think, she's doing terrific work in this, and there's a lot of buzz about her getting the gong for Best Supporting Actress. I do think that also, you're right when you say about her depiction, because film history has a very bad record of depicting black middle-aged women, particularly in America, particularly of that era, and falling in a domestic setting as well, in a sort of service setting, being like the mammy figure and being the sort of either voice of wisdom and a kind of wisecracking comic relief. Yeah. But this is a fully dimensional character, and there's scenes that just break your heart. And it's you know what it is? It's a film made with lots of tenderness. Yeah. It's a really, when you like take something out of the oven and it's really well baked, and you're like, that chicken is tender.
Delicate light touch.
Delicate light touch.
Multiple light touches creating something very meaningful.
Doesn't overstep itself. It's really nice. I was really charmed by it, and I think everyone will kind of have a good time with it. It's there to be enjoyed. Would have been a nice
Christmas film.
It would. I actually, it did remind me a bit of Little Women.
Oh yeah,
Greta Gerwig's Little Women, because that, in the way that that's a Christmas film, but isn't a Christmas film, but is a Christmas film. In that, the reason why Little Women is so brilliant is not only that it has that kind of familial warmth, and there's the Christmas setting, all that stuff, but there is sadness in Little Women. Yeah. There's real tragedy and there's real sadness, and that is also in the Holdovers. There's kind of this melancholy behind everything, and that's what makes good Christmas films. That's what makes it. It's not the Hallmark Christmas movies where everything is like that deep.
We were talking about Christmas films, and you were like, yeah, sure, Wonka, Paddington, great, but like very obvious mushy Christmas films, and then like you put the Thing on for your family, which totally applies, but it's not cozy and nice at all. The Holdovers for me sits in this, like, it's lovely. There's a lot of darkness and sadness there, but it's not so like gushy, let me rub your chubby cheeks for Christmas. It actually is a really well-placed, well-toned film for the Christmas time. More of them, please.
So I
back on form for
I really liked it. Absolutely back on form for Alexander Payne. I think most people like it. Please let us know your thoughts if you enjoyed it too. I thought it was lovely. A really nice, solid, lovely film.
Yaub writes into hello@popkitchenpodcast.com and says, hi, my name is Yaub from Toronto, and I've been a fan of the podcast for a while now.
Or could be Job.
Could be
like the biblical Job.
But Job is spelt...
I know. Yeah. I know.
Yaub, Job. I'm going to go with Yaub for now.
Yaub.
I think Yaub.
Yaub.
Yab says, writes into hello@popkitchenpodcast.com just like you can. It says, hi, my name is Yab from Toronto, and I've been a fan of the podcast for a while now. Now that 2023 is over, I feel like this has been a great year for movies in general, with great blockbusters like Barbie and Oppenheimer, movies from great directors like Poor Things and Killers of the Flower Moon, but also indies like Past Lives, May December, and Anatomy of a Fool. But more than anything, I finally felt like the experience of going to the cinema is back how it used to be prior to the pandemic. My personal best movie experience of the year was going to TIFF because it was my first time going to an actual film festival, and it was amazing to see the city filled with other movie lovers. I don't know if you've been to TIFF, but I definitely recommend going. Also, a beautiful time of year in Toronto, as they say it. As the festival, one of the movies I got to see was The Holdovers, which is one of my favourite films of the year. I think Davine Joy Randolph deserves an Oscar for that performance, and the fact that it was Dominic Sessa's first film role is crazy because he was great in that movie.
He is very good.
Yeah, he's really good. Anyways, I wanted to ask you guys if you've been to any film festivals, and if so, what's your favourite experience from one? Happy New Year, and looking forward to episodes during Oscar season. Yab.
Yeah, I have a feeling we probably read that email out at the time, but we've only been to the London Film Festival one, but we'd happily go to.
We'd love to go.
If we're paid for and put up, we'll go anywhere.
Yeah, we'll go anywhere.
Venice.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah. This next email is from Matthew, who sent this email in a while ago because he wanted to write in about being last place in the quiz.
Thank you, Matthew.
But he mentioned The Holdovers there. He says, I do have some movie talk. I went to the premiere of The Holdovers at the London Film Festival. I saw James there because you were working there in your actual job.
Yes, I saw Alexander Payne. We did a little interview with him.
He says, I thought it was a really beautiful film. The way it's edited makes it look and feel like you're watching a film made in the 70s, which I thought was an interesting choice. It's a really touching film about the relationship between a student and his teacher. Yep, and I'd be disappointed if Paul Giamatti doesn't receive an Oscar nod. The ending was a real gut punch for me, where it really makes you emotional. As a teacher myself, I wonder whether this film resonated with me on a different level to a viewer who isn't in the education profession. Matt,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great to see you, as always. Matt. Guys, thank you so much. If you had thoughts and wanted to send in your thoughts about The Holdovers, send them in to hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. George, should we do some emails?
Sure.
George, it's time to go through some of the emails that we get sent into the show. Guys, if you want to send your emails into the show, as I've said many times this episode, you can do by emailing in to hello@popkitchenpodcast.com, just like Bevan did. Bevan writes into the show with subject, hey BBYS.
Babies.
Hey, babies.
Hey, bebes.
Bevan, where you been? It's been a while.
She has a life, James.
Sorry, Bevan.
Bevan, you go.
You hear from us.
Bevan,
I don't know what's going on,
don't listen to
Bevan.
me. You go live your life.
I need...
Be free now.
It's okay, Bevan. Bevan says, heya, how's things? As per, been loving the pod lately.
Thanks,
I always try and save the episodes when they're released for my commutes / the gym, but I always end up listening straight away.
That's nice.
Bit of a different one today. I unfortunately got my heart broken over Christmas. Bevan.
Who did that to you, Bevan?
And so I have a question. Do you guys / fellow sirens have any movie suggestions that you watched when you went through breakups? I feel like there's a great niche genre here, so would love to hear your thoughts. Le gros, which means with love in Irish language. I butchered that definitely. Bevan.
Bevan, I'm so sorry. First of all,
you're all good. You'll be fine.
You'll be fine. You'll be grand.
Yeah. Straight out the gate, I would say...
Le Gras. I'd say that's Le Gras.
Le Gras. Straight out the gate, I would say let's avoid sad romantic films.
Well, unless you want to feel your emotions. You want to get you want to watch an Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
I
Mind.
think that's something you do in a different... I don't know how recent this was, Bevan. I think you want to give yourself some cooling off period, and I would instead look to find the funny side in the breakup. My recommendation is to go for like a Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Of course. Not seen that in a while.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've not seen it in a while either. But,
so are you thinking of breakup themed movies that happen to be positive?
Yeah, that are like
As
on the
opposed to
whole
just, like,
funny and we're
Dirty
moving
Dancing.
on. Yeah, or just like, I don't know, something really sad. You don't want to do...
Maybe to put it in perspective, like go watch Son of Saul and then be like, fucking hell,
You know what was really sad?
yeah, usually that's
Like,
bad.
shit, I guess I'm okay.
Maybe what's the thing?
Like, funny, stay away from your normal peoples,
what
your
about-
one day. Don't look at one day.
What about a movie like, where it's about someone going on their own journey?
Oh, yes.
Like Kill Bill as one example. But
Kill
also,
Bill, great breakup
Yeah,
film.
breakup film, because she's like out for blood. Like,
Yes.
There's also a great movie, I think it's a great movie, called Tracks with Mia Wasikowska and Adam
Yes.
Driver. You seen it?
No, but I know of the film.
Set in Australia, woman decides, true story, in the 70s, she was like, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to tame 4 wild camels, and then I'm going to walk them in the 70s across Australia. And James, Australia, famously very hostile in the middle.
Yeah.
And she does it, and it's like, you go, girl.
Or you find like a fantasy genre that's completely sexless, like Tolkien. Like there's barely a
love.
kiss.
Yeah.
There's barely a kiss.
So yeah.
It's all about like we should be able to love, but we're not going to love now. We've got to destroy a
Watch
ring.
a film set in a monastery. Where there's
Yeah.
there's no desire.
Watch Silence with Andrew Garfield and
Oh,
Adam Driver.
God, yeah.
That's a sex. There's no sex in that, is there?
No.
No. Yeah.
No.
That's suffering.
That's austere.
That is such a slog.
If that movie was some food, it would be like a bit of porridge,
Yeah.
watery porridge given to you in like a
gruel.
slate gruel.
in a wooden bowl.
Yeah, wooden bowl that you've got like a little thing to
through
get through.
prison bra, through prison bars.
Yeah.
And they're like, are you ready to denounce your religion yet?
Yeah.
They're like, there's been a mistake. I remember me and a
Slop.
mate of mine from school, we both like films. We both like, yeah, like Scorsese's Silence is a little bit long, a little bit intense, but we really like looking forward to go see it. I just remember, it's such a slog of a film, brilliant performances, but really sort of hard to get through. And by the end of it, it completely sapped the energy from us. We didn't really have the energy to talk about it. I think we wanted to compliment it, but
I know.
days
it
on, I
does.
was like, that is just a real
It is.
chore
It
of
is
a
a
movie.
bit. It's like it is a bit of a mission, literally, like a religious mission. It kind of.
You feel the years progress through the movie.
Yeah. You come out looking like Andrew Garfield by the end of that movie, sort of wan and thin.
Skin and bone.
Bevan, you're great. Don't
You'll be
worry
fine,
about
Bevan.
it. You know. But they will rue the Crazy Stupid Love.
Oh, Crazy Stupid Love.
Yes,
Yes.
they're
Something
really
about older marriage and relationships. Not Marriage Story, I would say.
La La Land.
La La Land.
lovey.
No, I think that could pluck at the wrong heartstrings. Lead you down a
Whiplash,
dark
where he
side.
just like,
Whiplash.
he's
Yes.
like, I don't need you.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I am trying to pursue excellence.
Yeah.
You are weighing me down. Yes, Whiplash. Whiplash, good.
Bevan, you got this.
Should be great. Should be fine.
New email from Anders. Anders, who writes in and says, a new favorite podcast. Hello, James and George. I've just discovered your podcast last week, and I've been listening to the segments for the films I've seen recently. I enjoy your takes. I'm a co-host of a Norwegian film podcast, so it's very interesting listening. So Anders has reviews of a few films. I'm going to pick out Maestro, which we haven't talked about that much. We reviewed on the show many weeks ago, but James also covered it in a bonus episode a couple of weeks ago. He says, funny thing about Maestro is that it gets compared a lot to Tar, and how Tar teaches you a lot more about conducting than Maestro does. I think I said that.
Yeah.
Now, this is true, and it's part of the problem with Maestro, which I'll get back to. But there's something off about Tar too. While spending an awful lot of time talking about musical feeling, I found it very ironic how still the conducting was, and how there was no musical feeling when Blanchett played the piano. Yeah, the reason I'm saying this is because I think Bradley Cooper cares a lot about doing the conducting right, and I think he did a good job of it as an actor. It would probably require a professional conductor to do a better job than Cooper did. That being said, I think it was strange to see how much he cared about looking like Bernstein, but both while conducting and not, when the focus is on his personal life and not on his career. I admire the approach to not make it just another biopic, but felt it strange to leave all of it out. Lastly, during the end credits, we are shown footage of the real Bernstein, and while watching him conduct, the audio is not from that concert, which makes the conducting and the music out of sync. Why, he puts. So I have a friend who saw Maestro, and he made a slightly interesting point. So my friend's gay, and he said he got this slight whiff from Maestro. I don't know if this is fair or not, but he felt it a little bit like Bradley Cooper, comfortable straight man, looking at Leonard Bernstein and going, "Oh, that must have been terrible for you.
How brave.
How brave. You were gay and you were married, and that must have been awful and like an awful time." When, by all accounts, Bernstein,
From what the film communicates, actually.
well, the film communicates like, a lot of anguish, but by all accounts, historically, Bernstein's was not that troubling. Like he had
Parties where he
and his wife had an understanding. It wasn't a great burden in his life. You know what I'm saying? And it's almost like this film kind of forces the presence of that in Bernstein's life a little too much, because to give it a sense of drama, and it's slightly narrow-minded, one could argue, of Cooper on that part. That's what my friend pointed
It's hard
out.
because we're not students of Bernstein's life.
Exactly.
Just on your point about Tar, like, yes, the relationship between Maestro and conducting and Tar and conducting is very different. But in Tar, music like haunts Lydia Tarr, and like the sounds that she's hearing and literally haunt her, and she's holding it from afar.
Yeah.
It's drama. It's dark. It's not trying to achieve the same relationship with music in my eyes.
But Tar is so much more psychological and experiential about conducting, about music.
Intellectually as well. There's that opening
Yeah.
scene, which is, I don't know how long, 20 minutes long.
And I can remember the dialogue from that scene, but there's the scene in Maestro where Bradley Cooper's wearing the nice white cardigan outside.
Yeah.
And he's doing the thing about music is that I tried to do. And I'm like, I can't remember what you said in that scene.
No,
I
nothing.
can't remember because all I
very
remember thinking
mumbling.
is, oh, look at the close zoom you're giving yourself on your face.
Cigarettes.
I haven't said this on the show, but this is also perhaps a bit unfair, but I've been thinking a lot about Maestro and a little bit about, we had a lot of correspondence about Saltburn last week as well.
So everyone's talking about Saltburn.
And I do fundamentally think that Bradley Cooper and Emerald Fennell can and will go on to make like good films. But I have this thing where it's like, I think that both of those people are filmmakers who might have been given too much resource and too early on in their
Thrown in the
directorial
deep end.
careers. Because I remember watching Maestro and a little bit of Saltburn. I remember thinking, this is cool, but I think I'd like you to both go away and make a movie for $500,000 with 4 people in a room and see what you can give me. Because to both people I say, where are your crappy student films that you exercise the harsh learning lessons? Not to say that, they didn't learn anything in the making of these films, but just watching Maestro and Saltburn a couple of times, I was like, I feel like you're working out your filmmaking skills in front of us on the biggest stage possible, when most filmmakers get this out of the way. So when they get a film that's produced by Scorsese and Spielberg with the biggest budget on the biggest streaming platform, like Bradley Cooper does, we're ready to rock and roll. I felt like I was still seeing Bradley Cooper explore himself as a filmmaker, but in a way that we would expect most filmmakers to have done.
And it's sort of this illusion of you get the finest budget production, cinematography, and then you design it like a film that should be nominated for Best Picture with a biopic prosthetic.
It's a very harsh argument.
Yeah,
and there's also
harsh.
it's the same argument as saying that they're taking up someone's space in the queue.
Anecdotally,
It's just a thought.
I've not been asked more about my opinions on a film
Than Saltburn.
Than So many of my mates who don't watch films like, oh, did you see Saltburn? I watched Saltburn. I'm just hearing it on podcasts. I'm hearing it just on the tube. That whatever, we haven't really gotten on with it or thought it's that amazing. But a lot of people have been very intrigued by it.
Yes.
So it's a combination of its aesthetic, its availability.
Yeah. And it's also got some sort of...
I think for people our age, the time period
sensationalist
it's set in.
content.
Yes.
Well.
Oh yeah, the shock. Oh, you haven't seen Saltburn, the scene.
the-
You haven't seen the scene.
yeah, the scene.
Oh my god, it like completely was
People are
mental.
just watching it for that sometimes, so.
And so like my mate the other day, he was like, oh, did you like Saltburn? I thought it was great, and I was like, I don't think it's amazing. Like there's parts of it I found quite intriguing, but all in all, it's not as smart as I think it is. And he said to me, he's like, oh God, you really like it, because he knows I do the film podcast. He's like, oh, you're quite critical these days. And I'm like, no, I just generally don't get on with the film, but I know so many of my friends and colleagues who I've spoken to have really gotten on with it, and fair enough if they enjoyed it. I'm really
For a
happy
film...
them. And then I asked him, do you see the Tarantino Mr. Ripley? And he was like,
What's that?
Oh yeah, ages ago, and then Brideshead. And I was like, you should go and rewatch that. That's so much better and so much smarter.
I think that it's like you were saying, it's for a film that presents itself so well visually and sets up so much. I think the kind of shallowness of its payoff and the shallowness of what's really underneath it. The film, I realized the other day, I was like, the film is as trashy and as shallow as the characters at its heart. And that's fine if you're enjoying the film. Like I know a lot of people, friends I've met, some of whom are my friends, have said, oh yeah, it was silly, but it was watchable. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. That's kind of my sentiment. It's more when people go, oh yeah, what an incisive satire of the rich.
No,
and I'm
I
like,
just don't think so.
Please.
You just want to sound smart, George. It's
Yeah.
like, no. And they're like, but doesn't it look beautiful? I'm like, yeah, it does. It looks really cool.
It's a
It brought me
2-hour
back
music
to
video.
a period which I don't think is really captured in cinema yet. And that film was like actually one of the first films to do it. Anyway,
Anders, you've given us a Saltburn, unintentionally a Saltburn tangent.
this next one is from Hugh, who writes in. It says, good morning, lads. Hope you're both well. I found your wonderful pod in late November after stumbling across it on Spotify. I'd been searching for a really good film analysis and review podcast for some time, trying to reach one out until I found yours. I found your insight, opinions, reviews, and highly accurate impressions informative and entertaining. I thought impressions at the start of an episode of Michael Caine and Christian Bale was a clip from The Prestige. It was that good. I find myself saying, I agree a lot during my morning commutes, not only with you, but also with other listeners' emails too. My question for you today is regarding True Romance, which is one of my favourite films of all time. George mentioned this in the pod from early 2023, brackets, I'm a bit behind, sorry guys, when talking about which actors' films you could watch if you could pick just one actor for the
Samuel
rest of your
Jackson.
time. Brad Pitt came up, True Romance was mentioned, and I'd love to hear what you both think of it. For me, it has everything you could want in a film, including an ensemble cast made up of cameos, written by Tarantino, but directed by Tony Scott, who has been discussed before. It would also have been very different if Tarantino directing it, including a very different ending, but Tony Scott did a great job with it. Apologies for the long email. Keep up the good work. All the best. Hugh from High Wycombe.
Have you seen it?
No, I've not, but it's on my
yeah.
long list of
Yeah.
out-of-time films.
The Tarantino hallmarks are all there.
Yeah.
But what I love is that the cast list is, I think we did do it early on in Cast's Countdown, is so 90s. It's like Christian Slater, Val Kilmer, Tom Sizemore, Samuel L. Jackson,
Yeah.
Gary Oldman, Brad Pitt, Christopher Walken, Dennis Hopper. It's so good. The Tony Scott aesthetic is
Yeah.
great. It's a Rose. Is it Patricia? It's Patricia Arquette. It's really fun, and it's kind of brash and kind of like blood splattered and silly. And Samuel L. Jackson is in it for 22 seconds, I believe.
Nice.
And Gary Oldman's in it for like just a similar amount of time. But yeah, it's fun and silly and kind of wild, and it's iconic. What I realize now looking at it, the style of it is really distinctive
And holds up.
because Tony Scott always had a good visual style,
Yeah.
as we saw with Top Gun, because he had a background in advertising, and he always had a really kind of cool American kind of pulpiness to it.
We
So-
rewatched Top Gun 1 before Top
we
Gun
watched Top Gun
Maverick. You can go
Maverick,
listen
yeah.
to that episode. I thought that was a good episode when we reviewed the original Top
Yeah,
Gun.
that seems like
But
a-
we pissed off a lot of people. Oh my God.
Some men are so protective, are so insecure in their masculinity that if someone
That was so
threatens
funny.
Top Gun, they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe
Middle-aged
it!"
men holding assault rifles
In their profile
fucking
pictures.
Diddly boink middle America got so upset that we didn't think Top Gun 1 was amazing, even though we complimented it a lot.
know.
Anyway,
Anyway.
next email.
Guys, we've got a few emails coming about Anyone But You.
Yes.
Which James reviewed last week. So quickly, this one from Campbell, who says, "Hi, James and George." He's mixed around the
okay, so-
spelling.
yeah.
Best way I could think of to keep it.
James with a G, George with a J.
He says, "I recently started listening to your podcast on a recommendation from a friend. Absolutely fallen in love with it. You get me through several 7-hour drives over the holidays. So thank you."
George, didn't I say drives over the holidays, commuters?
Driving home for
This was
Christmas.
for you.
I
Campbell.
recently went to see Anyone But You and bookended it by listening to your podcast about it. I didn't actually hate it, but my viewing of it was enhanced in the second half by my friend informing me that it was an adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing. Right.
I will say, I didn't know this going in. I did not have the pleasure of studying Much Ado About Nothing at school.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't get that. I know like rom-coms, loads of rom-coms have done this in the past. I didn't know that going in, but someone, Talia since
Yeah.
came up to me and said, "Oh, do you know that's a
yeah,
spin on Much Ado About Nothing?"
I googled it after I saw this email come in, and I think the film doesn't want to mention its Shakespeare credentials only when it gets it out of jail. You know, only when people
okay,
go,
fine.
"This one doesn't work," and they go, "Oh, well, it's based on a Shakespeare thing." So
Is the overhearing thing in Much Ado About
yes,
Nothing big?
so
that's the thing I actually had a gripe with.
Campbell goes on to say that I think it explains the overuse of the orchestrated accidental overhearing, which is a key element of Much Ado About Nothing. Nothing equals noting, which is a term for gossip. And yeah, I also heard that noting was slang for sex as well back in those days. So
Okay.
Much Ado About Nothing is like a little
He's so witty, that Shakespeare.
so this also explains some of the more ridiculous lines of dialogue and the loud exclamations and somewhat unbelievable staging of conversations.
Yeah, which are just so... They
yeah.
are some of the most ridiculous
So some
parts
of
of
it's
the
like,
film.
okay, maybe it's based. Not that I've seen it, but maybe it has. But I feel like it's trying to get out of jail. But anyway, Campbell concludes by saying, "As an Australian, I also just hated every reference to Australia and the Australian accent. But I think we generally feel this when seeing Australians on screen.
can
Do you mean
imagine.
Australians? Bloody hell, no! Anyone but you?
No.
Just kidding, Campbell. That was a joke.
Adam writes in and says, "Hi, George and James. I hope you're both staying
Friends of the
well,
show.
staying warm this frosty January because I, for one, am freezing down here in Bournemouth, and that's Poundland Benidorm. We've got -5 coming up in London this week.
Oh, crikey!
Frosty. He goes on to talk about Anyone But You, and he says, "I watched it on Jan 2nd and thought it was perfectly passable. I don't have a strong desire to rewatch it as I did with Ticket to Paradise, but I laughed a lot and enjoyed the trip. One thing that I think James may have missed is that it was a modern retelling of Much Ado About
there you
Nothing.
go.
I love a bit of Shakespeare, so I picked up on it, and it definitely elevated my experience. Inoffensive fun."
I think if I watch it, I'll watch it on the plane.
Yeah, that's what it's for. That's what it's for. And there's a good plane sequence in that movie. So you'd just be like, what?
Is it one of those movies that's a plane movie, as in can be watched on a plane, but also a plane movie in terms of its
There's a bit
flavour?
on a plane. Yeah. Yeah. There's only one plane scene, but I enjoyed it.
No, but like it's plain.
Oh God, I wasn't there.
You were-
God,
you really were slow
Chess
to
and
that.
checkers, yeah.
You didn't study Much Ado About Nothing, did you? That's what time
Iris also writes in and says, in Anyone Else But You, I think you mean Anyone But You, it was all much too glossy. I think it wasn't successful because it didn't fully commit. It didn't commit to being ugly, silly, and chaotic enough to be funny, and it didn't commit to being faithful enough to Shakespeare in following the right beats that made his plays so funny. The script isn't self-aware enough as an adaptation, and personally takes itself a bit too seriously. I think the film came off as expensive in the same way a fancy shop does. It looks slick, but it's just a bit empty. I believe rom-coms demand a bit of messiness
Agreed.
to really work. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on these two main things. One, do you think rom-coms need to be a bit messy and a bit ugly to work? And two, what do you think about rom-coms and adaptation? George, any thoughts from your English degree background? Do you think we should be looking back at older comedies and love stories to make a comeback rom-com that's more universal and timeless? Or whether by trying to adapt, rom-coms are actually stunting themselves, doing something interesting and new, like what happened with Anyone Else But You? Eagerly awaiting the rom-com renaissance, Iris.
Thank you, Iris. The film is called Anyone But You.
She also says, I totally agree with James, there is a sense of hollowness to the film.
When you talk about rom-coms being messy, question, Anyone But You, what socioeconomic status are the two leads, and is it discussed ever?
They are wealthy. They're definitely upper middle class, but I don't think it's discussed.
So I was just thinking then, we're talking about the messiness and the drama of a rom-com. I think...
So the main character is meant to be, she's studying at law school, but she's dropping out.
Okay.
So there's all like financial
Glenn Powell.
pressure, like Glenn Powell, I can't remember what he does.
Okay. What I was going to say is, I think that with rom-coms, when we talk about the messiness of it being a secret ingredient, I was starting to think, is it the richer a character is, the less good the rom-com is? Is a rom-com great if it's about rich people? Because I'm thinking the
There's
more...
an escapism there.
Whereas that's the problem I think rom-coms have fallen into, where it's like, if they're wealthy, we can have the glossy holiday, we can have the excess, it looks great, but it's also hollow. But if you think about it, if you actually have characters who are making ends meet, like struggling in a shift, I'm just pulling it out of thin air.
Yeah,
They
I'm
give
trying
like
to think.
Helen Hunt in As Good As It Gets, even though I don't love that film. But like Harry and Sally, I mean, I know that their apartments are kind of ridiculous, but like their jobs are kind of like standard. They're not glossily wealthy.
Just thinking about the Christmas rom-coms that people love, The Holiday and Love Actually, everyone in that is middle class or upper middle class or prime minister even.
True. But
there's no poor
that's not
character
a good
in that.
rom-com though. I would say that's more
No,
of a
I'm just
Christmas
saying, but one that resonates with people.
like I feel like you want it to be about everyday. The more everyday, the more relatable it is. Also, it's more filled with drama. Then, if you're,
Stakes. That's like Ticket to Paradise was like
That's why also
George
so-
Clooney and Julia Roberts being basically themselves as wealthy as they are flying first class.
but also like it's kind of baked into the drama. I mean, how many Shakespeare, like Romeo
Sounds
and Juliet,
mad.
people of different classes, different sides of the. No, I mean, they're warring families, aren't they? They're both. But my point is, people from different sides of the tracks, like fancying each other. Like, I think it's more interesting when they're
Titanic.
I don't know where I'm going with this. I've just thought about this on the spot, but basically, I think the richer the characters are in a rom-com, the less good the rom is. The less good the rom
That's
is.
good, the Robin.
Yeah.
Iris, thank you very much for your question. Guys, thank you for all of your questions this week. We still have loads of emails for different films. Some of you have written about Paul things, which we're going to talk about in the bonus. But as always, guys, if you want to send in your thoughts to the show, you can do by emailing it to hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. George, as always, Pop Kitchen ends
With a game.
with a game. George, I have three games. I have two games for you. 2 rounds of the name 3 and 6 multiple
God.
power hour. And then I have an either or. 1 round of an either or. Now, we've had. Thank you for all the new listeners who come to join us. in
Oh,
Pop
hello,
Kitchen.
yes,
It's
hello.
amazing. It's been an amazing start to the year. Thank you so much. I will explain the games. We always end with a game.
Yes.
I know I said it, but I'm on default. I'm automatic. I'm going to play a game with George. We used to do this thing, which was like name 6 in 30 seconds, but we turned up the heat. I'm going to give George, he's got to name 3.
It used to be named 7 in 30
Name
seconds.
7 in
but anyway.
30. He's got to name 3 in 6 seconds multiple times in a round. You can play along at home, and if he fails, there'll just be a consequence. But it's a fun little game to end the show. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to get my timer out, not my
always
calculator.
Gives me a headache.
George, are you ready?
Let's do it.
George, you have 6 seconds to answer each of these film questions. Ready? Quick fire. 3, 2, 1. Name 3 Leonardo DiCaprio films.
Titanic, Revolutionary Road, and Django Unchained.
Yes. Name 3 Sandra Bullock films.
The Heat, Speed 2, and The Blind Side.
Yes. Name 3 characters Daniel Day-Lewis has played.
Name the characters.
Yes.
Daniel Plainview, Abraham Lincoln, and Reynolds Woodcock.
Yes. Name 3 Harry Potter film titles.
The Prisoner of Azkaban, The Goblet of Fire, and The Order of the Phoenix.
Yes. Name 3 Pixar villains.
Anton Ego from Ratatouille. Sid from Toy Story, and Al from Al's Toy Barn.
Oh, yeah. I'll give it to you. That was round 1.
I passed.
Yeah, you passed.
I did.
You passed. I thought Harry Potter titles would stunt you, but you...
I know. I know all the titles.
Yeah,
Please
okay.
give me some credit.
Pixar villains I threw in there.
That is tough.
It's harder, Pixar villains. You got Zurg. The Toy Story's a good one to be in there. Hopper, Syndrome.
Yes.
You've got
Randall,
yes. Lotso Bear from Toy Story 3,
yeah.
and the Prospector from
Who's
Toy
the
Story
villain
3.
in Inside Out? Is it her emotions?
Oh, there
There is
isn't
no villain.
one.
It's just an antagonism.
What an interesting point there.
She is her own worst enemy. She's her
There
own
are, I
villain.
do think there are many villains in Pixar films.
What's the villain in WALL-E? Just humans, really.
Oh, no, that the red eye. The
like the
Kubrick.
Hal bot
Yeah,
thing.
Hal. Yeah.
Is it called Hal?
It's not called Hal.
But it looks like Hal.
It looks like Hal.
All right. Give me next round.
Ready? Okay. George, you have to answer these film questions in 6 seconds. Quick fire. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Name 3 Star Wars villains.
Villains: Darth Vader, Boba Fett, and Jabba the Hutt.
Yes. Name 3 time travel movies.
Back to the Future, Looper, The Terminator.
Name 3 Al Pacino movies.
The Godfather, Scent of a Woman, and Heat.
Name the 3 US presidents that Forrest Gump meets.
Kennedy, Nixon, Reagan? No, he doesn't mean Reagan. Ford.
It's time. It was Johnson. Name 3 Roger Moore Bond movies.
A View to a Kill, The Man with the Golden Gun,
Yeah.
and Moonraker.
Yes. There you go.
Not seen any of them.
Oh, see, no Roger Moore.
I'm very, very sparse. in my
Losing Roger
Bond
Moore. Oh, okay.
knowledge. I don't think my knowledge goes
I
pre-Brosnan.
like Spy Love Me and Roger Moore. I've probably seen them
Octopussy.
all. Octopussy, Moonraker, yeah. Moonraker's
Terrible.
out there. Yeah. Right, George. This last one is an either or. It's a psychological experiment. I'm going to present you quick fire with 2 films, actors, characters, entities, directors. And you have to very quickly tell me which one you prefer.
And I know by now to just go on gut, and because otherwise you shout at
And
me.
even if you haven't seen the films, it doesn't matter. It's just like what you like the sound of or what you prefer.
Okay.
Okay? Ready? Just go do one round of this because I know it sort of wearies you. Ready? George, quick fire. Tell me which one of these you prefer. 3, 2, 1. James Bond or Mission Impossible?
Mission Impossible,
Empire of the Sun or Empire of Light?
Empire of the Sun,
Willem Dafoe or John Malkovich?
Willem Dafoe,
The Devil Wears Prada or Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels?
Devil Wears Prada.
Father of the Bride or Scarface?
Not seen either of them in a long time. We'll just say Father of the Bride for Steve Martin.
Ketchup or mayonnaise?
Mayonnaise.
Richie Rich or Guy Ritchie?
I've never seen Richie Rich, Guy Ritchie.
Inception or The Prestige?
Prestige.
Iron Man or Superman?
Superman.
Magneto or Professor X?
Magneto's cooler.
Call Me By Your Name or After Sun? Quick.
Call Me By Your Name.
Brokeback Mountain or Requiem for a Dream?
Brokeback Mountain.
That's it. There you go.
Tough.
Yeah.
How is Brokeback Mountain and Requiem for a Dream a pairing?
They're not at all.
I see.
Some of them are, so I like to sort of
James,
throw.
you're
Some of them are like
genius.
obvious pairings.
Wow.
Like, so Father of the Bride and Scarface, George,
right.
do not pair.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
It's actually harder to
Psychological
put some things
warfare.
together. You're like,
I
well,
see.
what do I prefer?
Thank you.
That's all.
I'm getting more robust.
You're
at this.
getting
I used
better
to
at it.
sweat and panic, but now I'm like,
You're easier. You're a bit quieter, a bit more. You're growing. It's great. Guys, thank you so much. Those were the games. Thank you, as always, for listening to this episode of Pop Kitchen. We really appreciate you spending your time with us and for making it to the game section. We love you.
Yeah.
You know you're our biggest fans. Don't forget, we post new episodes at Pop Kitchen every single Wednesday.
And thank you again to any new listeners that have joined us. We really appreciate it. The show is growing, and it's because of all of our listeners that is a credit to. Bonus episode coming this week. Don't forget, James is going to talk about Night Swim and
Poor things.
that's it. James's thoughts on Poor Things. If you want to know our review on Poor Things. It was in my review on Poor Things was last year.
Film about a swimming pool that's evil.
That's Night Swim he's talking
That's
about.
Night Swim.
Not to be confused.
Yeah.
Anyway, as ever, guys, please like, subscribe, follow us on social platforms to really help it. Anything you can do to spread the word about the show.
Please rate us, rank us on the Spotify app. It really
Yeah.
does help people discover the show, and shows that are ranked and rated is such a massive endorsement from the people who listen to the show to help find new audiences. So please, if you're listening, watching, like it, rank it, rate it. That would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Have a great week.
Bye, guys.